The time bomb is set.
Now, to be honest, I knew about Alien Syndrome throughout my gaming life, around 30 years or so, but I never really bothered playing the 1987 Sega game of Alien Syndrome until a few years back, really. It is, I suppose, a knockoff to some extent of the film Aliens. Kill aliens on board ships, rescue hostages, or as they are known in the game as comrades. From here, take on bosses. It's a superb top-down multi-scoring running gun game that did very well in the arcades at the time, and as always, these big games had a multitude of conversions whether you wanted it or not. The arcade game ran on Sega System 16 hardware. Now, compared with other arcade port videos I've done so far, this one was a little bit more sporadic in placing versions of the game. The reasoning will hopefully become evident as you watch through. There is versions that you might also expect to be higher up, but like I say, this one wasn't particularly easy to judge. Either the version looked good but played bad, or the version didn't look so good but played well. We even have a portable version here, which was slightly different but was also very good. So yes, a particularly difficult game to rank, but as always, if I missed out a particular port, I sincerely apologise. But anyways, here we go. The first thing that struck me with this Amstrad CPC conversion was obviously the size of the gameplay area. That sometimes isn't an issue for some games, but then it comes to everything else which is wrong with the Amstrad's 1988 Ace conversion. Firstly then, of the nice touches of destroying aliens and worms in the game, is that little explosion effect that happens when shooting them down. No effect at all with CPC's port. They will literally just disappear, almost like they've been sucked into the vacuum of space. Secondly, the alien worms reminded me of the crisp Whatsits. Thirdly, the very bad scrolling is difficult to judge when moving in any direction. This is something we'll see more of in this video's various ports. This version isn't very nice to control either. It does suffer from frame drops, and finally, the colours used are really bad. Remember the What's-It analogy I just made? Well, the worms are even coloured orange, as so are other things. A very odd choice of colours used in the CPC version here. The MSX conversion is, well, to be honest, terrible. Slightly better than the What's-It eating creatures that plagued the ship in the Amstrad version, but literally by a fraction really. Yes, it is pretty much monochrome, which isn't a big deal, especially for hardcore computer geeks like myself, but good grief, this game was just so slow to play. It looked bad too whilst scrolling the screens to navigate for my comrades. Just a really atrocious version here. Now, normally it's usually the Nintendo NES arcade conversions which are different from others. In this case, this is going to the Sega Master System. Firstly, as you'll see, this version doesn't multi-scroll at all. It is strictly a single screen game. The suspense is totally lost here, as we can see straight off the bat where the aliens are as they generate. It just doesn't really take away that suspense. It's a very dull conversion which takes anything great about it away. There doesn't even seem to be maps either to identify where your comrades are being held. By pressing a button, we can access how many comrades are remaining in the game. Yeah, it's a bleak game, and it seems strange to put a Master System game so low down in this list, but for finding the version of Alien Syndrome which matches to the next best thing in the arcade game, this has far too many problems, and I haven't even mentioned how brightly coloured this space vessel even is. Despite the lack of colours, the game plays so much better than the poor Amstrad CPC version. This Spectrum conversion, although not perfect by any means and controlling either Ricky or Mary seems a little strange, in fact almost weirdly comparable, or at least reminded me of the odd controls in James Bond's License to Kill game. The game is a huge step up from the Amstrad's version, where moving around the vessel you're on, there just seems to be a little more time and more of the gameplay screen is revealed in this version, which gives you more time to prepare for incoming enemies. The characters look pretty cool in this too, and by the seams of things, even all of the different weapons are here too, just like the arcade version. The boss in this version is, however, very difficult compared with other ports. Despite this 1989 Mindscape IBM PC compatible DOS version looking good and to some degree sounds okay for a DOS game of this era, the game suffers with very poor frame rates. This is very annoying when attempting to make it around the vessel with a timer, not knowing if there is aliens right next to you when you move in any direction to see more of the map. This isn't the only version to have this atrocious issue which maximizes difficult level without need. The game itself is nicely coloured, and it even does have some primitive sounding speech synth, which does add to the overall arcade experience. The game does experience frame drops, especially on the first boss. I will note here that sprite design are actually some of the best out of all the versions of this game. Almost an enhancement over how it originally looked. Overly, not completely awful version, but by far not the best. Although the Commodore 64's conversion by Ace, which released back in 1988, looks fairly decent, sounds decent, it even controls really well too, the really annoying thing with this port is that it's extreme slow scrolling, and because we are also on a timer to rescue comrades, this makes things incredibly difficult when walking in any direction near the borders to navigate around. It just doesn't move quick enough. Aliens will pretty much appear and give you a split second to destroy them. You will lose plenty of lives with this alone. Like I said, everything else in this Ace conversion is very nicely put together really. The music isn't the same as the 1987 arcade's original, but it kind of works well and also adds sound effects too. We also get no speech synth, but that seems to be a general thing with every port of this game. But we do get a synopsis of the mission, which adds to that authentic feel. It really is a shame about the slowness of scrolling, otherwise the C64 port could have been a highly regarded classic. To be honest, although this version on the Sega Game Gear doesn't strictly follow the arcade game in terms of mapping, it just seemed too good to dismiss it as the terrible Sega Master System version. Now, firstly, we can destroy doors in this port rather than just walking in and out and waiting for them to shut behind us. The music is really atmospheric too with this port. The only reason that I didn't want to put this one any higher is because we are actually searching for arcade perfection. It does make me chuckle though how the Game Gear is much superior than the actual console version by Sega. Virtually the same as the next computer version in this list, although this Atari ST port lags pretty badly in places. It does look the part though, granted, but by far the next version on the next platform is much better. Now, what can I say about the Commodore Amiga's 1988 port by Ace? Well, yep, it looks really faithful to the arcade version without a doubt. It's not overly high in bright contrasty colours, weapons are great to use, killing aliens is very nice too with their dying animations. Nothing wrong here at all really apart from that damn scrolling. Again, although not as bad as some of the other parts so far, the Commodore Amiga version still thinks that having a more fluid screen that moves quicker and exposing more of the maps isn't a big deal for this game. It really is, and it totally ruins the gameplay like most other versions. Something else with the Amiga port is the occasional frame drops. Not as bad as the Atari ST, but just such a shame, just like the Commodore 64 conversion could have done so much better. And finally, we have made it to a conversion that has no problems with multi-scrolling around the gameplay area without so much slowness involved, which many of the other versions had. This is the 1988 Sanritsu Famicom conversion, or Nintendo Entertainment System conversion. Now, at this point of recording, I actually felt this port was very easy compared with others. I'm not sure if the game itself is just simply an easy game on the NES, or that this game played just as well as the 1987 Sega Arcades game. Noticeably, the music is very Nintendo 8-bit, but does a really good version of that slow-in, dreary, dreaded music for the stages like the arcade original did. This version also appears to give the player much more time too, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. This version also requires you to collect every single hostage, otherwise you cannot progress to the boss segment of the game. It's a really nice conversion and controls nicely with some good work around sprite collision. And in first place we have the inevitable Sharp X68000 1992 by Denpa Shibuya release. This truly offers the full arcade experience and, dare I say it, actually plays a little better than the original 1987 game itself. Some slight changes here, where the first boss, for example, is very different from the arcades game, but damn, this really is the port to go for. Smooth scrolling, no problems there, unlike 80% of the different versions which failed to do something about this issue. Superb collision detection, nice colours which are on par with the arcades game. Yes, Sharp X68000 users would have absolutely rejoiced with its conversion, without a doubt. This really is an amazing version of our beloved Alien Syndrome game. And that's it for today's ranking the port. So like I said from the get-go in this video, it was a very strange list to compile and how to rank some of these. But anyways, let us know in the comments section, as always, which version you grew up with, and do you agree with the list I've compiled? And bear in mind, like I say, this wasn't particularly easy to do. But anyways, until next video, thanks for watching.